Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Russell Libis. We're honoured to acknowledge Ms Soliate Takivatatini, Councillor, Deputy Head of Commission representing the Fijian High Commission. Captain John Fox, Chief of Staff, Republic of Fiji Military Forces. We warmly welcome the attendees of the 2019 International Aviation Safety Officer Training Course from the Royal Australian Air Force. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and cadets on behalf of the following units. From New South Wales, Naval Cadets representing the Waratah Flotilla, and Army Cadets representing the 20th Battalion. Australia's Federation Guard is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events, and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier within the Hall of Memory. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Party, attention! Catapult party, present arms.
Australians
If anyone would like to take a seat, please do so now. Any of your children there? The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Robert Edwin Berry. Robert Berry, known as Ted, was born on the 23rd of December 1878 to Thomas and Mary Berry of Brisbane. A well-known athlete described as just the sort of man for roughing it. Ted Berry was one of the three brothers who enlisted for service during the Boer War. He joined the 5th Queensland Imperial Bushmen, a contingent raised for service in early 1901. Ted and at least one of his brothers served in a small cyclist company that was part of the contingent. They left Australia for active service in early March 1901, and their arrival sparked interest in Cape Town, where newspapers noted they were a very fine lot of men. The Queensland Imperial Bushmen is one of the finest bodies of men ever landed here. The Berries contingent arrived in South Africa after major set-piece battles and sieges were over. An extended period of guerrilla-type skirmishes with the Boers had begun. By mid-1901, the Queenslanders were busy on patrol and regularly met with the enemy. The cyclist's duty was to accompany the advance guard and to guard the light automatic cannons known as pom-poms when required. Ted's brother Harold wrote, "Most of our work is to guard the pom-poms and guns. This is no country for cyclists, and the sooner we get horses, the better, although everyone says we have done good work." In July, the cyclists were accompanying the advance guard following a group of Boers when they came across a good piece of road. Ted Berry described how they set sail after them, going past the advance guard like mad, and got within 600 yards of 50 Boers. They engaged the enemy and were able to break them up, capturing a large amount of stock they had been holding behind the lines. Berry took charge of 400 goats and sheep, jealously guarding his spoils from some mounted officers who wanted to take it back. The bikes were generally not useful. However, at some point over the following months, the cyclists were given horses. In early 1902, the Queensland contingent again engaged the enemy near the village of Overwicked. Boer forces made small attacks at various points, drawing larger force into an area where they were outnumbered. Another member of the 5th Queensland Bushmen, Trooper Charles Bryce, wrote, "We simply marched into a huge trap amongst the hills, and we were surrounded in a few minutes. We tried to make a stand, but found it was no use." Harold Berry wrote to his mother to tell her what happened. "We were having dinner when the guide brought word to say that there were 800 Boers on a kopje in front of us. Major Ballantyne gave us orders for us to saddle up. We had not gone 300 yards when we got volley from the Boers. Then our pom-pom came up and Boers made a rush at us. Poor Ted was just in front of the pom-pom, and that is where he fell. He fired at the Boer on the white horse at about 30 yards range. He shot the horse and stood up to fire again at the Boer, but the Boer fired first and hit Ted, the bullet going through his wrist, hitting his second shirt button, and then fell, and then right through his chest. He clasped his hands over his breast and fell. He said goodbye to one of the men and died." Outnumbered, the Australians were forced to withdraw. Ted Berry was buried nearby with 10 other men killed in the same action. Harold wrote that Ted died with a smile on his face. In fact, you could hardly tell he was dead. Mr. Price said he had seen the same smile on his face hundreds of times when he was asleep in the lines. There is one thing to be proud of. He died like a soldier and a man. Friends of Sergeant Ted Berry and another cyclist killed in the same action, Corporal McFarlane, raised money to erect a monument in St Matthew's Churchyard, Sherwood, to their fallen comrades. Members of the contingent attended a service to unveil the monument, many speaking warmly of the two men. The Reverend Ewan concluded the service by saying that their thoughts that day were with the boys who were sleeping on the African veldt under the African sun. He was sure the deeds of the 5th and our contingents would never be forgotten. Ted Berry was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst 605 Australians who lost their lives in the Boer War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Robert Edwin Berry and all those Australians who gave their life for us, for our freedom, in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we are left to go old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult Party presents presents arms. Party, shoulder, arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Catapult party inwards, turn. Catapult party, quick, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.